We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey. So welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. Today our guest is Dr. Christian Fraser, and we're going to have some really interesting topics, especially the last one. I'm really excited about that. We were just talking about that. But he is the author of a book called Unleashed Potential, and I'm going to give him a minute here to explain more about himself. But some of the topics we wanted to touch on today are, of course, trauma, mental illness, mental health, not mental illness, actually mental health, mindfulness. We'll probably touch on relationships, but the biggest one is happiness triggers. Happiness triggers. I know, right? I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Reverend Dr. Christian Frazier. I am the CEO of Elevated Minds Consulting, Coaching, Mindfulness. We teach mental health first aid. We teach mindfulness to groups and small businesses, small and medium businesses in the area. I keep saying small and medium businesses, but the last business I went to go speak was like a $4 billion a year company. So they were not a small
No,
business.
I would say that's quite large.
And really across the gamut of teaching mental health first aid at work. And also I am the chair of the BIPOC subcommittee for the Zero Suicide Alliance in Hillsborough County. I also am on the board for NAMI Hillsborough. So my goal really is mental health awareness, suicide awareness to help lower the suicide rates. And I work on some national initiative too, like the National Changing Minds Initiative, where we teach the science of trauma to help, again, with mental health awareness through mental health first aid training. And we're doing that virtually in person. We have grants in this area where I teach in a 5-county radius. So if you're a business or a church or any type of nonprofit organization, there's mental health first aid training for you.
We need more of that. That's awesome. That is wonderful. I know we're just kind of scratching the surface on learning about trauma. And, I've been diving in for several months, just trying to understand it more. And there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot we know, but I think that there's a lot more that we need to learn about it. And so the awareness is so huge.
Yeah, I think that having a better understanding of it, like I have a book, Transcending Trauma, an ebook, Transcending Trauma, and I also teach it as a workshop. When I taught it as a workshop, one of the students said, I didn't even realize that I may be having a trauma response to some of the things in my life. And it's because we typically normalize chaos and trauma. I heard one of those famous comedians says, because it was happening to everybody else, I thought it was normal. And that's what happens in communities, that trauma becomes so normal that we normalize it. And it's that proverb of the African frog in the pot. If you put the frog in a pot with boiling water, you jump right out. And if you put it in a pot with cold water and you slowly raise the temperature, we keep adjusting to every level of temperature until it gets boiling hot, and then it's too late.
You are so right. And I know for me, it's really actually been empowering learning more about trauma and understanding it, and understanding, oh, I'm not just crazy. Because that's really what I thought for many, many years, that it was just me, that, I didn't share. So I thought all these emotions and thoughts and feelings were crazy me. And learning about that, no, it's not me, is, okay, so I'm okay, and then also
it's empowering because we can heal from trauma. We can get to a point. For me, I don't believe that I'll be totally healed, but I can certainly have learned to manage it much better. I have healed from a lot of it, and the parts that you maybe don't completely heal from, I'm able to manage it much better. It's empowering, and I don't feel helpless anymore.
That is the great thing. It's you don't feel helpless. You don't feel
Mm-hmm.
trapped. You don't feel trapped in your thoughts. And one of the greatest things that I keep telling people, and it's kind of been a recurring theme this week, is that hope is something that's really lost in the world today. Um,
Yeah.
Hope is a key ingredient in resilience, and hope
Mm.
is a key ingredient in mental health
Mm-hmm.
recovery and substance abuse recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But we have so many things to destroy our hope, like the news and what's happening with the economy, the rising cost of housing and groceries and inflation. And every time we have something happy or good that happens in our lives, then something really tries to come along and to destroy our hope. And then we get tied to regret.
Yeah.
And regret is such a thing that we can transcend from because we typically regret. It anchors us to the past.
Oh.
But what we can do is that we can reframe regret and let it propel us to our future. We reframe regret by releasing it instead of it being something that holds us back as opposed to something that somebody did to us or an event in our life that happened and we use it as a chain or a
Mm-hmm.
prison to hold us back. We can say we can reframe it instead of it being a negative experience. We can say that this taught us a lesson because there's power in our pain, and every pain that we went through, there was power, there was knowledge, there was something that was gained from it. I'm a big superhero fan, and everybody, if you see me online, people call me Superman. I have lots of Superman shirts and jackets and everything like that. And I mean, whole Superman outfits and a leather jacket, rings, you
Wow.
name it. And one of the things that people don't realize is that the S on Superman's chest does not stand for Superman. It actually stands for hope. And I didn't realize that
Wow.
I was really attracted to this character my entire life, but he really was a symbol of
Mm-hmm.
hope. And releasing and releasing our regret, it requires us to go through pain. And every superhero, every last one of them went through pain
Mm-hmm.
in order to be who they are. Batman lost his mother and father. Superman lost his mother and father on Krypton and his earthly father. The Flash lost his mother. Harry Potter lost his parents. Everybody that became someone great had some great
True.
pain to go through. And that really teaches us a lesson that we have to go through our pain. And we spend so much time trying to avoid
True.
pain instead of embracing it and running right through it. We have to run to it instead of running away from it because we have to go through pain, but we don't have to hold on to it. We don't have to let it be a invisible shield that holds us back in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. And that's typically what we do.
That's true. And I'll tell you, I can tell you what my mindset was about pain. And I'm still a little bit there. I'm working on embracing that. Is that I had so much pain as a child, right? I had for so long. I don't want pain. I don't want pain. And so I got to the point where that's exactly what I did. I would avoid it at all costs because I was tired of being in pain. At 19, that is what motivated me to begin my healing journey. I didn't realize it at the time that that's what I was feeling inside was a pain, but I just remember not feeling okay inside and not liking it and trying to find a way to fix it and not realizing I needed to go through the pain. I need to feel the pain in order to get on the other side of pain. But for years I ran from it because of that reason. And it slowed down my healing.
And it slows down our healing. It also tethers us to the
Correct.
past. Yeah, and what we do is we try to figure it out by
Right.
ourselves. And you decided to go on your healing journey, but a lot of us turn to other coping mechanisms such as
So did
alcohol,
I.
drugs, hanging around with
Yep.
bad influences. So that's typically what we do. And then what we're doing is we're just masking the
Correct.
pain. My therapist said this, like, pain is like, I wish I had a rubber band, but like if you had a rubber band on each finger, and it's like, we try to mask our pain, but no matter how far we go into the future, that pain is going to follow us. You can try to stretch out as long as you want to, but that pain is going to follow you. So we have to embrace it. Carl Jung talks about, shadow work and embracing our shadows. And even Superman, when I looked, there's this Superman, I think it was Superman 3, and Richard Pryor was in the movie. Richard Pryor is like one of my favorite comedians. I was watching Richard Pryor at 9 years old when I shouldn't
Me
have been
too.
watching Richard Pryor. My mother was like, "What are you doing watching that filthy man
He
with his
was
filthy mouth?"
hilarious.
And so, but I was watching Richard Pryor live on the Sunset Strip. And the funny thing is that Richard Pryor got paid more than Superman in that movie because he was a bigger
Right.
star at the time. But in that movie, they gave Superman some synthetic kryptonite. And what it did, it caused him to break out. And his darker side, his alternate ego, who didn't really give a darn about people and everything. And it could be somebody in trouble, and Superman was still sitting there at the bar drinking, like, I don't care. So like, but then Superman had to fight himself. He had to embrace his dark shadow in that movie. And there was a fight between him and the darker side of himself. And once he confronted his shadows, and then you saw it in the movie, the symbolism is that the shadow entered inside of him but became one with him. So again, we typically try to hide from who we are, or at our core. We try to run from problems, and running from them only creates more anxiety. We really have to face them, and that is the doorway and the pathway to healing.
And it can be overwhelming too, like you were saying. It can be, it can just build on itself to where you're running from it, and it's that dark shadow that's kind of, like you say, hanging on. And for me, I'm realizing it, and I want to get away from it, and I can't because I'm not facing it. And for a while I did some self-medication, definitely with some drugs, and definitely eating. That was my big thing. But then it just compounds, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and scarier. And then it becomes overwhelming.
And then becomes this mountain that you
Right.
can't, that you don't want to
Right. It's
face,
like, it's too big.
because you've been avoiding it for so long. It's too, and then it becomes, so then that's when you need the help of professionals, therapists, counselors, life coaches, to be able to help you. And then also reading, and it's all of your inputs that are different than what you were doing before. So it's not a lot of Netflix, unless it's documentaries on like The Mind Explained or something like that. But you start changing your inputs to match the new life that you want to create, as opposed to doing the same thing and attracting the same experiences.
Right. And that's what I did, actually, because you were talking about chaos earlier. I grew up in chaos, and then I was, for the first part of my life, probably 40 years, was chaos, pure chaos. And I knew it. I could see it. I didn't know how the hell to change it, though. And what I had,
because it was normal.
It was normal. And it was that, I call it I was comfortably uncomfortable. So I was cut.
Yeah, we get. I say that we become comfortable in chaos. We
Yes.
do. We become comfortable in
Even though I'm
chaos.
sitting back watching this and knowing it's chaos and knowing I don't like it and understanding that it's making me feel anxious, but I didn't know how to change it. But one of the things that I did, and you just hit on it, is I started being careful about the things I watch, the things I read, the things I listen to. We have created our home as our sanctuary. It is our safe place. It is a calming place. And everything that we do in here is to create that kind of peace. And it's for us, and it's also for everybody that walks in the door. That has been a game changer for me, because that was kind of my foundation, which then I brought that into every part of my life.
And now everywhere you go, people say, "Oh, you seem so peaceful." You never told me that, but I bet you they tell you
Yes.
that. They say you seem so peaceful. You have a peaceful aura. You just bring peace
Mm-hmm.
with you, and that's what happens when you simply change your inputs. And I talk a lot about that in life coaching and how to control your
Yes.
inputs, because it's really important. And in the book Unleashing Potential, a guide for life mastery, my section is about meditation. And in meditation, I talk about we really have to be careful about controlling our inputs, and we need to be very strategic about controlling our
That's true,
inputs.
because it's a lot of work, and it's, we can't control all our thoughts, right? They're whizzing in our mind. We can be aware of them and we can kind of manage them, but we can certainly help ourselves by being careful about, like you say, what we're inputting into our mind, whether it's what we're reading, what we're watching, what we're listening to, even the people that we're hanging around with, everything.
Even the people that our circle is extremely important, because if you hang around a circle with people that are constantly in chaos, there's no way that you cannot absorb that energy. Like, people think energy is some kind of fake stuff, and I even had a heated discussion with a doctor, and I was like, "Look, doc, I mean, you went to school. Uh, your body, your heart, and your brain are the biggest generations of electricity in your body. And we know one thing about electricity or energy: it cannot be destroyed.
Mm.
So, since it can't be destroyed, if you come in close proximity with somebody else, you are exchanging
Mm-hmm.
energy with
Mm-hmm.
them. It is not a it's not something that you can
Mm-hmm.
avoid. But what we didn't realize before is that that energy that they're giving off, it can affect you. And that there are some people, we have documentation, that empaths are real. Like, there's 2% of our uh, population that are empaths, that can walk around absorbing
Yep.
other people's energy and their feelings, and they're feeling bad because they're
Yes.
around the wrong people. I know I have to
Mm-hmm.
protect my energy. And if I'm in a place where somebody's chaotic all the time, then my visit has to be very short.
Yeah, and you're exhausted afterwards. You're completely exhausted afterwards. It's the weirdest thing.
You're exhausted afterwards. Yeah, no, I've had people that come out and, they're like energy vampires. They come in and you're like, you have to take a nap after they
Yes,
leave.
literally. Literally, I have actually done that. That's so funny. It's so funny. It's true. But, and that's protecting yourself, and it's true. And imagine, and I think back on when I was in survival mode, because I was in survival mode for so many years. And in all that was the chaos and just the exhaustion. I was exhausted all the time, all the time. And it's just, I didn't.
Because we're really taught how to survive.
Correct.
We're not really taught how to
Or
live.
thrive.
And there is a huge difference, or thrive. So we're taught how to survive, and that's what our parents teach us, and that's what our grandparents teach us, and that's what they teach you in
Supposed to.
school. That's what they teach you in the military. They teach you how to survive, and we really need to get into education of teaching people how to
Yes.
live. Like, soft skills, emotional intelligence, and coping skills should be something that is taught at the the K through 12 level.
Absolutely.
And I think it was the Dalai Lama that said it, if mindfulness was taught at the K through 12 level started at like say 5 or 6 years old, we would end crime in one generation,
I agree. I agree. I agree.
or at least have significant numbers in lowering crime. Because I always say this, a lot of people that commit crimes are really because they lack hope.
Oh yeah.
They don't really see any other option to be able to live, to eat, to survive, other than doing something that's illegal. But we really, and that's our job as leaders, as chosen ones, as faith-based leaders, as people who work in social work, is to instill hope. I think it was Napoleon that actually said that leaders must become dealers of hope.
Ooh, I like that.
And you don't really normally see positive quotes coming from Napoleon Bonaparte.
But that was one.
But I happen to find and pick the one that I love. And I think, and he said, leaders have to become dealers of hope. And when we think about dealers, we think about dealers of dope, and we think about car dealers, and we think about the dealers at the blackjack table, but we don't really think about, we are dealers of hope. And that is how we change and heal our communities, our nation, and our world.
That's the second comment that you've made that is just a little brain changer. Because it's like the happiness triggers. It's a different way to look at this stuff, right? It's just a different way to shift and look at it that brings hope and brings something positive. It's one of those things that makes me pause and go, okay, yeah.
It's like it's changing our thinking like this. When I was in sales, they told us, you got to change your thinking. Instead of getting sad when somebody tells you no, get happy. Every time somebody tells you no, get happy, change your mindset. Because every time somebody tells you no, you're closer to somebody saying yes. So it's changing our mindset, because there's a different perspective for everything. And that's what I tell people therapy and life coaching is about. It is about getting a different perspective from our limited mindset because of our geography, how we grew up, our families, whatever it may be. And somebody comes along and say, what, I never thought of it that way. And I just had a life coaching session with a 72-year-old yesterday who is going through a transformation in his life at 72 years old. And what I was telling him, look, it's never too late, because Colonel Sanders founded KFC at 65 years old he funded it on $102 a month that he was getting from Social Security.
I knew part of that. I didn't realize that last part.
You think that everything is over? It's not too late. And you can change your mindset. And see, what happens is that our situations typically they put blinders on us, and we think that this is our lane, this is where we're stuck at, this is the cards that life has dealt me. And I'm here to tell everybody that it's not too late to change. Samuel Jackson didn't become famous until he was 50 years old. I'm sure he was walking around saying, I'm a good actor for 48 years, 49 years. But Samuel Jackson, he was addicted to crack. He was a crackhead. But what he did, he changed and transformed his pain into power. In his first two major roles in the movie, he played a crackhead. In Coming to America and McDowell's, he played a crackhead to rob the store, and then he played a crackhead with Halle Berry in a movie with Spike Lee. So he took his pain and said, I'm not ashamed of it, because the Bible tells us not to be ashamed of our testimony. None of us should be ashamed of our story. stories, our past, because it defines us. That's the regret. A lot of us hold on to this regret. I made bad decisions in my past, and I hooked up with this person. I connected with that person. I stayed too long. And we have to let go and transcend from regret so that we can enter into our healing stages. Because as long as we hold on to regret, we are not going to be able to heal.
You're right. It is a chain to the past. You are so...
It is an anchor and a chain to the past, but it can become a stepping stone into our future, all by changing the way that we think about how everybody and everything that happened. It is, people say you can't change the past. No, but you can reframe it.
Yeah, you can.
You can reframe your entire life.
Yes, you are right. You are absolutely right. And, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I'm that person you're talking about. At 60 years old, I'm starting a podcast and I'm sharing stuff about my life that I have never, ever shared with anybody, sometimes not even therapy. I mean, I'm telling stories and I'm just like, I don't care anymore, because if it's going to help someone, if it's going to go out there and it's going to make a difference in someone's life, I don't have that shame anymore. It's like, it's making beauty from ashes.
Exactly. And that's what we have. It is, well, for some people, it's a gift. And someone said, you have this gift to be able to take your pain and be able to teach from it, to be able to help somebody else who may be going through that pain. And that's really what it's all about. You may have had to go through your pain for 10 years to be able to help somebody out of a situation in 10 minutes.
Yep.
But it was the 10 years worth of wisdom that you gained. You can't have wisdom. And people, people pray for wisdom. But when you pray for wisdom, you're really asking for more pain, because you cannot get more wisdom without going through pain.
That's right. That's where we grow. That's where we change. That's where we learn. Absolutely. It's not fun, but you're right. It's reframing how you're looking at it. Instead of looking at it like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? What is it I'm supposed to learn in this situation? And some, I know that there's things that happen to people that are so horrific, and it takes you a minute to kind of, deal with the emotions. But there is a time when you can sit back and you can do what you can to make beauty from that pain. There's people that lose children to horrific, crimes, and they turn around and they create a nonprofit and they get bills passed and they do things to make better from that pain. It's not easy for them. And it doesn't mean that they aren't still feeling some emotions sometimes when they're dealing with this, but they're doing something good and they're saving lives.
There's purpose in our pain. And I talk about in the book 15 Steps to Reinventing Yourself. We often have to reinvent ourselves constantly.
We should.
It is I don't want to be the same person I was 6 months ago. But a lot of us like to stay in routine. And I call it like being in the Matrix. And we get in this routine and we do the same thing. I know some people that are in routines where they even watch the same movies on Friday nights.
Wow.
Or they eat the same foods all the time. They go in, out, work, come home, go to sleep. It's like living like a drone type of life. And you're not really doing anything to enjoy life.
You're not present.
And we're definitely not present. And loneliness is an epidemic in the United States. I mean, it's affecting 60 million people in the United States. And if you are lonely, it's just the same. The Surgeon General said it's just the same if you smoke 15 packs of cigarettes a day. It's linked to killing more people than cars and cigarettes. And we are, even though we are made to be resilient within ourselves, I keep telling people, we're always looking outside for the answers and everything, and we really need to learn how to look
Mm-hmm.
within. But even though we need to look within, we still are herd creatures. We're made to be with other
Right.
people, and sometimes we have to we shed people. You know, I tell people like life is like an elevator. And when you're destined to rise all the way to the top, there's a lot of people that get on the ground floor, but you have to have enough intuition to know when it's time for them to get off your elevator. It's time to make room in your life so that other people can get on and ride with you all the way to the top. Those people had a time and a season and a purpose in your life, but that purpose is over, and you have to have enough wisdom to know when it's time to cut them off, because we typically holding on to dead weight is typically one of the things that prevents us from our healing process.
Mm-hmm.
We're holding on, we're tethering to that past, that person that is really no longer good for us. They can't even see the new healed version of you. They see that old version of you, and they keep
Mm-hmm.
expecting you to act like that old version of you that you put away and buried. So since they can't see this new healed version of you, you have to be able to build a new circle of people who see who you
Mm-hmm.
really are. And new people in your life will see the real you more than people that have been in your life your entire
Yeah,
life.
and a lot of times those people too also get resentful of your change. I have found that they get very.
They get
Mm-hmm.
resentful of your change. They will do things to self-sabotage
Mm-hmm.
your change. Like, I mean, and it's simple things, not even with mental health. Like I had a couple that one of them wanted to lose weight and wanted to lose 100 pounds. And the other one would come to bed with a bucket of chicken.
God. Oh, God.
So
Ugh.
and said, you know, like, I like you like this, and I don't want you to change at all. And so, you know, we, when we are preparing for change, I tell people when you're in relationships and you're preparing for change, it's very important that you communicate your intentions and that you communicate your change along the way, that you have conversations about it. And then that the other person is also working on their own healing
Yeah.
journey. It may not be the same because we're at different points in
Right.
life of
Mm-hmm.
healing, but if they're not working on their healing journey and you are, there's going to be a lot of
Well,
turmoil. They're not even going to understand how you talk.
no.
You know, I'm going to give you a prime example. I had an ex that I said to her, I feel like I speak to your trauma more than I talk to you. Your trauma is speaking real loud.
Wow.
And everything that you say comes from a place of trauma. I don't think that you understand that every decision that you make, every action, everything that comes out of your mouth, it speaks from your trauma. And it's really has a hold on who you are. And I really know that that's not who you are, that there is more to you, but you're only allowing your trauma to talk to me, and that is creating a barrier between
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And when they went to therapy, the therapist said the same thing. Like your conversation comes from a place of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't and you've normalized it so much that you don't really know that this is
Right.
happening. And it may have seemed like it was just me, but you have to have enough wisdom to realize that this is not, this is what you're feeling and what you're communicating is real. And we have to have conversations like that today. And I feel like a lot of relationships are not. We're just tolerating and then we're staying in it because it's comfortable and it's easy sex. And we don't want to go anywhere else because we prefer known hells as opposed to unknown
Ooh,
heavens.
yeah. What a blessing you are to say that to her, because you spoke the truth in love to her. You spoke, because it would be so easy. You had a lot of awareness, so you were able to see that. But the people that don't see that, when someone is speaking out of trauma, and I know because I was the one that used to do that, the reaction from other people is not that. The reaction from other people, because
Oh
then it
no,
could
it's anger and
anger, because who
argument.
knows? I mean, it could trigger them, right? It could be a trigger for them. They don't. They're like they're
It
because the
does.
thing is,
It was a trigger for me too.
oh,
Don't
I'm
think that I
sure.
didn't get
Yeah,
angry.
but you also, I'm sure, but you also took a minute, and went, okay, wait a minute, and you,
Yeah, I had to.
yeah, you had to have that minute, that processing minute, yeah, but for the most part, because I know, and I'm only going to speak on my behalf on how I behaved and watching people react. It could be kind of nutsy how I acted. My response sometimes didn't match what they were saying to me. Does that make sense? I would go over the top.
Oh, because we do it all the time.
Over the top.
I've been guilty of doing that as well. Very over the
Right.
top. I tell people I'm the extra extrovert anyway.
You're the extra and extra
I'm
extrovert.
the party. Yeah, I mean, I was a party. I was a DJ and a party
Oh,
promoter for
wow.
years. So I'm the party
Yeah.
guy. Like I like to have fun. I'm the extra extrovert. And yeah, I used to misinterpret. You know what it was? Because I was always used to people trying to attack me. That it almost felt like everything that somebody was saying was like an
Ooh.
attack. And I was interpreting it wrong because I
Yeah.
was looking through a
Yeah.
lens of
Me
trauma
too. Me too.
and being unhealed. And I was looking at everything differently. And
Yeah.
snapped
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
quick. I was one of those
Yeah.
anyway.
I was in,
I'm still that person, but people say, you used to have so much peace now.
yeah, we don't jump out there like we used to. you know, but
No, and then because I realized that it doesn't do any good for me, it actually brings me more damage than it does. So actually not having a response, it is healthier for
yeah, it
us.
is.
And that was something that I had to
Yeah, because
realize.
cleanup,
That everybody doesn't deserve that type of energy.
no. And you know what? Cleanup isn't fun. Cleaning up the messes that we make when we are triggered or we respond inappropriately, that is not fun. And I had the filter of, imagine this, I had the filter that everybody didn't like me because I was told that at a young age. And so I believed it. So that was the filter that I looked at. So I was battling with everybody. I already knew you didn't like me. So why put
And that's
effort
what
in?
happens. Exactly. And so then you have this, and so a lot of us either have this lens of like, either nobody likes me. I hear this a lot. I'm
Yes.
unlovable,
Yeah.
like I can't find a good mate, and so what happens, we don't realize that the power of our words confirm. So
Yes.
if we keep saying that and we keep thinking that, then you're not going to change. You're going to attract more of the
Correct.
same. So we have to change our thinking. We have to change our statements. We have to have more positive affirmations. We have to say them out loud because thoughts are things that go into the atmosphere. It travels faster than the speed of light. And when it comes back, it's coming back with the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us wonder why we keep
Yes.
attracting the same experiences over and over again. It is because of this,
Yep.
because of our thought. If you change the way you think about things, the things you think about will change, said Wayne Dwyer.
Yeah. And what we say, which you were saying a minute ago, is very important. And I've shared this on the podcast before. And when I was in my really unhealthy place, things would come out of my mouth about me. I mean, vocally, that were really bad. And one of the famous things I used to say about myself all the time was I'm so stupid. Right. And it got to the point, this is crazy. So first I was thinking it, and then I started saying it, and I was aware that I was saying it. Right. It got to be such a habit, or I don't know what, a belief system, I guess is a better way to put it, that it would come out of my mouth without me even realizing it. Like it would come out of my mouth, and then I'd go, what? Oh, that was me. I just said that. That's how bad. And so you can imagine how I felt all the time, right? If I'm sitting there saying all the time or thinking all the time that I'm stupid, and once I became aware of it, like once I became aware that it was coming out of my mouth without it going through my brain, that it was just obviously it becoming a part of me, I changed it. And it started with, first of all, becoming aware when it came out. And then I would say, oh, I'm so stupid. And then I'd realize I said it. And then I go, no, no, no. And the word I used, it worked for me, was I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed.
And that's, I was going to say, like, so I want to give everybody kind of like a tip or tool to do. And you actually explained it a lot. They say modern psychology says that, first of all, we have to separate ourselves from the voices in our head. And what I wrote, and I talk about this all the time, is that a lot of times those voices in our heads are not ours.
Correct.
They're external voices. Somebody else told you that you couldn't do. Somebody else told you that people didn't like you. And so what happens is that those external voices become our internal voices. And then we internalize it and we act like it's our thoughts, but it really isn't.
Right.
So we have to separate ourselves from our thoughts. And how you do that is say, give your thoughts a name, like Bob. I go further and I say, give your thoughts a name of somebody that you don't like. So when your thoughts say something, you say, you know what? Shut up, John. Like you have a little stiff conversation with your thoughts. And then you start asking your thoughts, like, what proof do you have that I'm not good enough?
I love that.
Not only am I good enough, I'm more than enough. So I'm more than enough. Don't forget that. So every time, and then what happens is you start doing it over time, you start catching yourselves in these trains of thoughts. You stop them, because what happens is that once that thought train goes down, it ruminates, and then it turns into 30 minutes or a whole day, or
weeks.
Or a week, weeks of ruminating on this thought that you have. So what you do is you stop it. And once you stop it, you give it less power. And the more that you do that, it's like a muscle. You keep working it out. And then all of a sudden you have more control over your thoughts than you previously thought that you had. So, and another analogy or how to look at it is like your thoughts are like a train, and they're coming into your station, and you have a choice whether you're going to get on that train or not. So this thought train comes in and says you're not good enough. You can get on that thought train, or you can stay in the station. And even if you get on that thought train and ride it for a little bit, you can actually hop off onto another thought train. And that's where the happiness triggers come in, because the happiness triggers are creating thoughts. We actually can create happier thoughts, and we can create emotions. Emotions are created. We really have total power to create them. And sometimes it's just changing or transforming the way that we thought a situation happened in our past. And then all of a sudden we're happy about it. We feel good. So use the thought trains, or talk to yourself.
Let's
give your thoughts
a name. Let's go back over that, because that was really good. Because I thought that's something that I might want to use, because by giving your thoughts a name, you are really separating them from you, right? I love that. And then, because as soon as you were talking that, it felt empowering. It felt like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to give my thoughts a name, and I can tell you to get out of my head. Because as a matter of fact,
I might even cuss at my thoughts.
I do. I cuss. I use bad words. I do.
I might cuss at my thoughts. Shut up.
Blankety blank. Yes, I know. But you know what? It's interesting, because when you said that the thoughts are not yours, like there's somebody else's voice, this was, maybe a couple of years ago, I heard the voice and I recognized the voice, and it was not mine. And it was the first time that it really, it caught my attention, and I went, wow, that didn't even sound like me.
That's not even my voice.
It's not my voice.
That doesn't even sound like me.
I know who it was.
It's been disguising yourself. It's been disguising itself as your voice for all this time.
For the first time I heard,
but it really was never your voice.
And so I was able to do that. I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm not doing that no more. I love that.
Shut
Shut
up.
up. I got to find a name. You know, I guess Karen, because Karen
Give
has a
it.
bad
I'll tell you.
name.
Give it a name. It was, yeah, Karen. It could be Karen.
Shut
Shut
up,
up,
Karen.
Karen.
Shut up, Karen. Get out of here. You're no longer welcome here.
Just don't do it at lunch.
So I love that. And so that is a great tool. And then, of course, the train station too. And you do have the choice of you can get on that train or not. Or if you get on that train, you decide you ride it a little bit. It's not the one you want to be on. It's time to get off. You can join on the next one or take a break.
It is a part of, we have what we call mindfulness based cognitive coaching, and some therapists use mindfulness based cognitive therapy. And it really is taking and changing behaviors and thoughts over a period of time. And it takes, like you start creating new neural pathways when you do something for 21 days. You start creating new habits. You start doing it for 42 and 63 days, then it really start. So if you start counteracting your thoughts with the name, or you start having discussions and you start using that thought train, then if you start doing it for like 60 days, 21 days, it's just going to be so
It's going to be
powerful,
transformational.
and you're going to really have a change. It's going to be extremely transformational.
I know, because that worked for me. I no longer say that. It doesn't even come up to where I always have to say I'm blessed. Like for a while, it was like, I'm blessed. Like that was coming out a lot because I was still trying to change that, I don't know, kind of thinking in my mind. And so I don't do it as much anymore. I still catch myself trying to call myself names though, every once in a while when I get mad at myself.
Yeah, because these are things that have been embedded in us for
Right.
so long. So, yes, and then sometimes things happen that trigger us to want to go back to do the things or say the things that we
Yeah.
used to do or act the way that we used to do. But then we have to have that wisdom. Be like, hold up, you know what? I'm not gonna do what I used to do because that didn't get me anywhere.
No.
I have to do something different. When this situation arises, I can't fall apart. I can't go to the bottle. I can't go to drugs. I can't go to hanging around bad influences. I have to find a better coping mechanism to deal with my situations personally. And until we get to that level or that point of self-realization, we'll continue to be in this cycle of attracting chaos.
Yeah. And I want to share with the audience, those that haven't felt that before, where you haven't become aware of when you're triggered, just slow down and pay attention to how you're feeling. And for me, a lot of times what would happen, I would get triggered and I would just react, or I would see a wall in front of me and I didn't know how to do things differently. And what works for me every time is just pause. Take a pause. Sit and take a minute and breathe. Because what that does is doing the breathing and pausing is going to get those thoughts to slow down. Because for me, it's like a freight train coming through my head. All this stuff is going through my head and none of it makes sense. I can't pick any of it out. And then I just react. And so if you just can take a minute, right? And you can breathe, it can give you that space to find that other solution.
Science says 90 seconds is all it takes for you to stop that thought, breathe, and you not to be able to ride that thought train. You just take 90 seconds to breathe and become present. You ground yourself. And that helps with just not getting on that thought train again. It's grounding. And that's something that, we teach in mindfulness is how to ground yourself. And that could be a walk. If you're getting angry, anxious, or you're having these negative thoughts, get up and go walk outside in nature. Go get some sun, get some vitamin D, observe the trees and the bees, and listen for the birds and the wind, the rustling of the wind through the trees, and just pay attention to everything that's going around you. Use your senses, your nose, your ears, your eyes, and how everything feels. And then, you've taken your mind off of what's going on, and then you can actually kind of take a
Right.
step back.
And you get a clearer picture. And all of a sudden it comes into a little more clarity, and then you can make better decisions because you don't have all this chaos.
Because what happens, yeah, what happens scientifically is this: you get triggered, right? And our prefrontal cortex up here, this is where all the logical thinking is done. When we get triggered, our thinking shifts back to
Yep.
the amygdala, and that's where the fear, fight or flight, mode is. And so, breathing, scientific, I tell people it's more than just breathing. Mindfulness is more than just breathing. It is reprogramming your mind, but scientifically, breathing itself shifts the thinking back from the amygdala back up to the prefrontal cortex, where more logical thinking is taking place. You're shifting nervous systems from the PNS to the SNS, the parasympathetic nervous system. So you're going back and forth, and this is what you want to do. And breathing really shifts that. We used to watch a lot of movies back in the day, and they would tell them to breathe in the bag. But now we really know that scientifically deep breathing shifts, your energy from one system to another to a more relaxed system. And that's what we really want to tell people to do. There is a research study from a university that shows that mindfulness meditation can be as effective as medication in the treatment of anxiety. Yeah. You can really transcend from medication every day to practicing mindfulness and be so healed. And you might even believe that this level of healing is not even possible, but it is by practicing mindfulness. And again, it's more than just deep breathing. It is mindfulness, cognitive based coaching or therapy that slowly changes your belief systems and how you believe about yourself. Yes. I tell people that our brain is like a ocean with a storm on the surface. Yeah. And although there's a storm on the surface, there's always a part of the ocean deep down below that is undisturbed and calm. It doesn't care about the chaos that's happening on the top. Mindfulness meditation teaches you how to get from the chaos down to that piece of your mind that is deep and calm.
That's a great example.
Peaceful.
That's a great example and so true. So now we're going to talk about the best part of the whole conversation is happiness triggers. We're going to learn about happiness triggers. I know, I love it. When we had the pre-interview and you mentioned that word or those words, that term, I was just like, oh, I love that because, we talk about triggers all the time and it's a negative thing, but you're going to share with us happiness triggers. I love it.
Yes, happiness triggers because, I have been in sales for a while. I worked for AT&T, I worked for GE. And one of the things that we had to learn in sales is that no matter what's going on, we have to learn how to be in our peak state. Like if you have a $10 million deal closing tomorrow, but something happens personal in your life, but this deal is going to change your life. Yeah. It's going to provide for you and your family. And it's not that you're ignoring what's going on in your life, but you still have to go in and do what you need to do. You have to be able to get into your peak state. And the way to be able to do that is you have to learn what your happiness triggers are. And we can do some self-exploration to find out what our happiness triggers are. We might journal them. We might talk to our significant others about them. Like I used to tell my significant other, a happiness trigger is a foot rub. Like if I'm having a bad day or something like that, like a foot rub or a back rub really soothes the savage beast. And but it might be a song. It might be a movie. Coming to America is one of my favorite movies. So, if I'm having a bad day, watching something that makes me laugh takes me out of the whole mood. So laughing is, so listening to your favorite comedian, talking to your favorite person who makes you laugh over the phone. Like I know that I used to be a happiness trigger for a lot of people. They would call me up because I'm a stand-up comedian too. So
What aren't you? You
so
do a
people,
lot.
that is the joke. That is the joke. People say, what can you not do? I learned that I was very I have like over 120 plus IQ, and what I learned that it is only limited to like 2% of the planet's population. But when you have 120 plus IQ, you can do anything. It's like, so like I talk to doctors, about the body and health. And I've been on panels with doctors about diabetes. I've been on the website for the guys who make
Hmm.
Ozempic and insulin, so I talk about a lot of medical, and they're like, why do you know this stuff? And it's just because I'm a geek. I mean, I went to school for computer networking
Oh, wow.
engineering, acting, real estate, um, marketing, I'm considered a marketing expert. Like I have letters of recommendations from some of the top marketing professionals in the
My
country.
goodness.
So I can do a lot of things. But what I learned is that really I am not unique in that. I just have embraced the fact that I don't have to be limited to one thing. I can actually be an expert in multiple things. Really, it was because I was tired of hiring people and paying a lot of money. Like graphic design and website design and doing, so like I do my own websites, I do my own flyers, I do my own video editing. I'm a photographer. If you see, I got like cameras and equipment, so I do all of that stuff because I save money doing it, because it costs a lot of money to have a photographer.
Yeah, it does.
So but we really all have the capability of taking the
Yeah.
time to be able to do what we want to do. Many of us, like I had a friend that I was like, you spend 30 minutes in the day on that app in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. That's an hour a day. That's like 7 days a week. Like if you add that up into a year, you could have gotten the degree or certification or something or started a business that would have helped you make more money and live a better lifestyle. So it really depends on what your
Hmm.
priorities are. So you can continue to spend an hour a day on that app, or you can actually spend some time in learning something, uh, getting more emotional intelligence, learning mindfulness so that you're not, living this comfortable in chaos life, but spending the time getting to be better as opposed to playing a words with friends game, an
Yeah.
hour a day.
Yeah. No, and you know what? It's true. And it's also, we use that as self-medication, right? To escape. And I,
We use that as an escape instead of facing what we really need to
exactly,
do.
exactly. And I am very aware of that. I used to, one of my escapes was, yeah, sitting in front of the TV. And during the day, it's not on at all. And anymore, we don't turn it on until the later in the evening. And we're limiting, and again, we're controlling what we're watching too. But but I can see in other, because that's one thing I have done. If I look in my life and I am aware of where I am wasting time. Now I haven't gotten,
And some of us don't even take that time to find
I
out.
know. But you know what? For a long time, I didn't realize that I was, like, when I was watching so much TV, I didn't realize that I was escaping. I didn't even know that. But once I became aware of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Well, let's stop that. I'm wasting all that time.
The goal is to create a life that you don't
Right.
have to escape from.
Right. Ooh, oh, wait, I gotta write that down. Create a life that you don't want to escape from. I love that. Okay, so to escape from. I can't write as fast as I can type. Um, so let's talk a little more about happiness triggers. So you gave some examples. Um, why don't you give a few more examples of how, because let's think about the person, because I can remember being there, who I was completely negative. I couldn't see anything positive. Couldn't. I couldn't see anything positive, right?
It is, and I was reading a blog yesterday where somebody they actually had a diagnosis where they really don't see the positive in anything.
It yeah.
And then what I say is that what you have to do is like, how about we not give anything positive or
Oh yeah, there
negative
you go.
energy? How about we give it
Yeah,
neutral energy? It's not positive or negative, it's
that's
neutral.
great.
And then it's a different
Mm-hmm.
perspective. It doesn't have to be positive or negative. It's
It's
just
just there.
it's an event that occurred, that happened. It's there and it happened. And so now, what is it that you're going to do with it? Are you going to allow it to be a hurdle, or are you going to allow it to be a stepping stone?
God, I love that. You're giving me so after I do these podcasts, I do my two biggest takeaways. You're giving me a lot. I'm like, oh gosh, what am I gonna pick?
Maybe you might have to make an exception of, well, the five biggest
I know,
takeaways
right?
from
Neutral
today.
I love that, and that is a really good starting point. Don't put a story to
It is.
it.
It's where you want to
Don't put
start.
emotions to it. Don't try to take all that away and just put it in a neutral place for a minute.
And then what you do is what you were saying earlier about triggers and everything. I wanted to add to it is that journaling
Mm-hmm.
is a way to find out what's happening with your triggers, when it's
Yes.
happening, where it's happening, who's doing it, how is it making you feel, and then you start analyzing it. And then once you start analyzing, okay, it's always happening when I'm around this person, or it's always
Right.
happening when I'm in this place. And then you start to make adjustments and
Mm-hmm.
changes. And that's when you work with your team, your therapist, your life coach, to work on a
Mm-hmm.
strategy to be able to change that and then possibly reframe it so it doesn't trigger you as much. Because the things that used to trigger me don't trigger me
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So either it's removing that situation or that person out of your life, or it is reframing that
Mm-hmm.
situation so it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
trigger you.
And it's really empowering to be able to take that time, because I've shared there was a while ago, uh, I walked through my first trigger from beginning to end, where I recognized immediately that I was being triggered. And it was really interesting because it kind of went in slow motion and I walked through the whole entire thing, and it was really empowering. And I saw what my mind automatically wanted to do, which was of course do some kind of self-sabotage
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Or I had a minute and I took a pause where I could see other options. Where when I didn't have that self-awareness and I didn't go through that, I would have just responded without thinking. I would have just responded out of my trigger, out of my trauma, and it would have been damaging.
Because we have this lens, this trauma filtered
Right.
lens that we can't avoid when we're
Right.
unhealed.
Right. Right. And that's how we see everything, and that's how we react to everything, and that's how we respond to everything, and that's how we feel. And it's just like when I had the belief system that nobody liked me, that is how I saw everybody. And that is how I acted towards people. I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to, but I walked into every single relationship with they already don't like me.
And then we have this tendency to want to overwork to make people like
Yes, people
us,
pleasing.
and that's a
It's
full-time job.
exhausting.
And it is exhausting, and then it tends to make us inauthentic
It does.
because we're trying to do things that are really not us in order to make people like us. And we just have to change that. And so many people go through that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they experience or they have negative experiences, and then they give up,
Mm-hmm.
and then they fall into this trap of social isolation.
Mm-hmm.
and loneliness.
Yeah. There's something wrong with me. And it's, yeah, this is so interesting. You're really hitting on some good stuff here. Um,
And it's really all a lie that you told yourself, and and, and sometimes it takes somebody coming along to just bust that
yeah.
lie wide
Yeah.
open.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? And I've said this on my podcast before too, is that it's been the people that have spoke real truth in my life that stung when they gave me that truth, but I needed it.
It stings.
I got smacked a few times and I deserved it. I mean, it was because it's what I needed. It's not that I deserved it, but it's what I needed. And it helped me like pay attention to what, like it snapped me out of that, I don't know, tunnel vision, I guess.
It does. It takes you. So a lot of people say, they say, Mr. Frazier, you're really rough, like with your delivery.
Sometimes you have to be.
because because no, you have to, because what happens is, and then like a colleague like Tony Robbins, because I used to go to see Tony Robbins all the time, and I learned, Tony Robbins kind of planted the seed for happiness triggers, truth be told. When I went to go see him about 15 years ago. And here it is 15 years later, and I developed it from going to see one of his seminars. But Tony Robbins cusses at people, and he says, like, I use some kind of words because I have to jar you out of your
Right.
bull. I have to jar you out of because you're so entrenched in your world that you don't really
Yep.
hear what I'm saying. So then when I raise my voice and I use a few choice words, and all of a sudden you're snapped
Yep.
out of that world that you're in. And now I've got all of your
So
attention.
true.
And then I'm going to say something that's going to be hurtful to you because you're not ready to hear it right now. That's the only reason why it hurts, is
Yeah.
because we're not ready to hear it. And
True.
and then you may get mad, but then you realize, and sometimes it takes 24 hours, 48 hours, a week later, that I needed that medicine. And I was mad as hell at that time, but I really needed that. I needed somebody to tell me how full of that I really was.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's almost like, you put your head down and you just go, and you're not putting your head up and looking around and seeing what's going on. That's how I was. I put my head down and I would just go, and I would just get into this fixation, and I couldn't get myself out of it. And so I've had people speak some real hard truth in my life. And yeah, at the time it hurt. And yep, I got mad. And yep, I thought, I'll never talk to them again. And that's not true. But, it changed the direction of my life. It got my attention. It made me, think about what I was doing. And sometimes, in some cases, it took me a few years to kind of get it together. But to this day, I still thank those people for saying what they said to me.
Exactly. And some friends of mine, like in Atlanta, they were talking about exercising and going to the gym and hiring a trainer. And I just said, well, that's not going to do any good with your bullshit diet.
Thanks.
and they were like,
Yeah.
But then like 2 weeks later, they started doing meal prep. So.
Yeah. 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 And the one that sticks out in my mind, that it was a real game changer for me. I was in such victim mindset and victim mode, and nothing was my fault. It was, you're doing it. And I remember I went over to my girlfriend's house, and she opened the door and she's like, "Hi, how are you?" And I just proceeded to just like spew on her all the stuff that my husband then was doing, and da 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 da. And she looked at me. What was it she said exactly? She said, "Boy, you always seem to have something going on," or something like that. And I was like, oh, I was so offended that she said that, but she was right.
She was right.
100% right. But I was so hurt at the moment that she, like, how come you're not joining in on my pity party with me? You're supposed to join me with on this pity party that I'm having. And you're supposed to feel sorry for me. You're supposed to agree with me. And now you're saying that. She's right. And it was that moment that it made me stop and think about it and begin to change my victim mindset, for sure.
I mean, and that's an awesome testimony. It really is. And that's really like, so just kind of like summarizing the book, Unleashing Potential. I was one of 20 life coaches that was selected from around the world to participate in this book. There's different sections on relationships. So there's the relationship expert, there's the finance expert, there's I'm the mindfulness expert in the book. So and what I like about it is that it offers a variety of perspectives and not just from one person. So it really gives, I really think it's a book that people can mentor from. Other life coaches can use to teach from, and that it really is a guide for life mastery. Like if you follow a lot of the tips and the tools given in that book, literally within 6 months to 12 months, you can have an entirely different life. And I'm a witness. You know, I wrote the 15 steps to reinventing yourself because I've had to do it many times in life. Like I was in real estate for 20 years. I was the number 4 realtor in the state of Florida. I
Wow.
sold almost sold $70 million one year by
Holy
myself,
cow.
which is more than a lot of companies
Yeah,
sell.
I used to be a real estate agent. I know how much work that is. That's huge.
So I think I sold like over 120 units that year. And but then the real estate market crashed and it went down, and everybody, I mean, I had clients who were worth $40 million, had private yachts, and I sold one of them a mansion. And then I heard he had a job at Home Depot because he lost it all. So like, but what happens is that I have faith, even though he was going to work at Home Depot, he knew how to get money and he knew how to build himself back up. And that's the same thing with me. Like the real estate market went down, and then I tried to get back into the real estate. I did. I get back into the real estate market again, but then it started crashing again. And I said, you know what? I do not want to be in an industry that is controlled by the feds and controlled by outside sources. And I've always been in the space of healing, and that's when I got into psychology and mental health. So now I am on the board of the National Association of Mental Illness in Hillsborough County. I'm the chair of the BIPOC subcommittee for the Zero Suicide Alliance, and I teach mental health around the country for a variety of populations, whether it be youth, military, higher education. So here I went from one place to now becoming the expert in mental health and considered an expert in mindfulness meditation. I had to reinvent myself. But it is possible for all of us to do it. And again, going back to Colonel Sanders at 65, off of $102 that he was getting from Social Security, and he built the KFC franchise.
I remember reading that and I was absolutely amazed. I had no idea. Interesting.
And I look at all of these stories of people who reinvented
There's a
themselves. Abraham Lincoln, he lost the election 7 times, had a nervous breakdown before he was president.
and didn't was it Benjamin Franklin that had I don't remember. I'm not even going to try and remember in my history, but
But there's so many examples of people who became famous after they had tragedy.
yes.
And to all the listeners, you can. It's not too late.
It is not too.
It's never too late.
And I'm so blessed that I have had so many guests on here that people who have gone through tragedy, their own tragedy, their own trauma from childhood, have gone through their own healing. They're on their healing journey, and now they're paying it forward. And now what they're doing is they're helping others. And I find that so refreshing that there's so many people that are actually doing that they're, they've gone through their own stuff and they just want to help others. And the whole purpose of this podcast is to shorten people's pain, to get information out there like what you're sharing, to give someone that aha moment that all of a sudden maybe you said something that really resonated with them and opened that door for them to be brave enough to finally take that first step to go and get some help, or go deeper in their
Because
healing.
16 years ago, I was a person without hope. I attempted suicide, and because I am a geek, I knew exactly the lethal amounts to take. So I took a lethal dose of aspirin. And the ambulance came and took me to the hospital, and they had to pump my stomach and do all of these things. But the doctor told me, he said that with that amount of aspirin that you have in your system, your liver will probably not function properly. But 2 days later, they came back and said that your liver is functioning 100% fine. And 15 years later, my liver's still functioning fine. And I take that personal story an example of not having hope to be able to help give other people hope, because I know what it's like to not have hope.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to feel like there's no way out. And it was all a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's beautiful. So I asked this question, but I think you kind of already answered it, but maybe you'll have more. What do you want to leave our listeners with?
I really do want to leave the listeners with feeling like you have hope. Like it's not too late. You're not stuck in your situation. You can transform. You can change. You can do anything. I tell people before I worked for AT&T, I didn't know anything about telephony or how the frame relays work and selling business internet. I didn't know anything about it, but I went and spent 2 weeks at Borders bookstore and read everything about telephony, enough to be able to pass the test that they gave me before I can get an interview, to be able to pass the verbal test that they gave me on the phone about scenarios, and to be able to get hired at AT&T, making a decent salary with the corporate American Express card, where they say, Christian, if you take your clients to the Bahamas, it's cool as long as you close the deal.
Okay.
So, I went from, and this was at the time I had no degree. This was a job that required a degree. You had to have a bachelor's degree. But I was able to sell them enough of my experience and what I knew. And then not only I was not a fraud, because I actually got in there and I got AT&T into Ticketmaster, which is one of the largest clients. So, and they're worldwide with their ticket, sales operations. So, I went from not knowing something to reinventing myself and knowing something. And then when AT&T closed, because they do layoffs every year, that's when I got into real estate, and I spent 20 years doing that. So again, you may have to reinvent yourself in life, because the industry that you're in is done. It may not exist anymore. Like telephone operators 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't exist anymore, and you have to reinvent yourself. Stop feeling stuck. Get unstuck and unleash your potential.
Yeah. I'm nobody special, and I've been able to do it, it's there for everybody. You are right. And I've transformed myself a few times myself, and it's a lot of work. And the whole healing journey, it is a journey, and we do need to be patient with ourselves, and we do need to know that it's not going to happen overnight, but with every step you take, and even if you don't see right away, you don't see the changes, with every step that you take forward is making a difference, even if you don't see it.
You have to walk by faith and not by sight.
Yes.
And then we have to not go by what it looks like right
Right.
now.
You know, and there's nothing
We can't give exactly. There's nothing wrong with where
right.
we're at.
There's nothing wrong with
That's what we have to realize. There's nothing wrong with where you're
right.
at. And if you have to restart all over, it doesn't matter. Don't let anybody else judge you based upon. See, we're mostly afraid of what other people
Correct.
think. Oh, he had to start all over again.
What a loser.
He had to sleep on the floor with an air mattress. What a loser. Whatever it is. You know what?
Yeah.
Forget that. Because your setbacks are really a setup for a comeback. And if you think like that all the time, if you always think like that, this is just a setup for a comeback.
I love that.
I don't care what's going on. I don't care how much hell has broken loose in my life. This is just a setup for a comeback, and it's going to be better than before.
Mm-hmm.
If you change your mindset to thinking more positive, then you become a magnet for miracles.
Right. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. This is so good. There's so many golden nuggets in this podcast. I'm telling you.
I love it. I love it that you love it. I really do.
I mean, it's confirming a lot in me, but I'm also learning a lot as well. So I love it. I love it. So
it's the great part of doing this.
I know,
isn't
seriously. I know. It's awesome. I mean, I'm meeting amazing people. I'm learning so much. It's really awesome. I really am making beauty from ashes. That is for sure. So if the listeners wanted to reach out to you,
make sure you tell Warren. You're friends with Warren, right? Make sure you tell Warren.
Right? Oh gosh.
Warren's my publisher, you guys.
He's awesome. He's awesome. I definitely will. So if our listeners want to reach out to you, or when our listeners want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you? And of course, we'll have all this stuff available for everybody too, but why don't you share with us how they can get a hold of you?
Well, if you Google Christian Frazier, you will find all of my links, mychristianfrazier.com. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, YouTube, X. I'm on every LinkedIn. I'm on every platform. And I typically like to post information and content that is going to help us all. Sometimes we just need some inspiration in the middle of the day. And sometimes we just need to laugh in the middle of the day. So sometimes I post some outrageously funny stuff too.
You know, it's kind of funny. This is a cute little story I'm going to tell real quick, and then we'll finish. So back when I was going through a real hard time, when I was going through a divorce, and my sweet little son, he was a young adult then. You know, he would catch me in a moment when I was down, and he would go, "Come on, Mom," and we would go. And you know what we would watch? This is crazy. Have you ever seen Robin Williams, the skit where he talks?
I love Robin Williams.
Oh my gosh, the skit where he teaches.
I met Robin. I worked with Robin Williams before.
Oh, what an honor. So the one where he talks about how golf was invented. Did you ever see that one?
His old stand-up.
I can still watch. I mean, I'm talking tears. I'm laughing so hard. And so he'd say, "Mom, come on, let's go watch Robin." And we'd go into, turn the computer on and watch it. And it was just, the laughter just would help snap me out of that.
That was your happiness trigger. You didn't even realize it.
Still to this day, I love watching him.
Still to this day, that is your happiness trigger. Yours is Robin Williams. I still love Nanu Nanu.
Oh my gosh,
Morgan Norton.
That man was a genius.
I'm old like that, but he was the kind. And I got a chance to meet him right before he passed, and and that's a great example. And it really, again, ties back. Everybody, find out what your happiness triggers are. Write them down. Let your significant others know, so that you can use them as tools to help snap you back out of whatever situation you might be in so that you can move forward in
And
life.
for those that sit here and think, I can't think of anything that makes me happy. Okay. So they could write down a few things that they don't like, right? And then find the opposite. Find the opposite.
Find the
Start there.
opposite.
Like if your mind feels so clogged that you can't even think of anything happy, you can start there.
And sometimes you have to go back into the archives. Maybe it's just a happy memory that you had in your childhood, going to the beach, spending time with family, and just take the time to sit and meditate and think about those happy memories.
It's true.
And then think about creating. If you can't think about an inventory of happiness triggers, then that's when you need the therapist and the life coach so that we can actually help you to generate an arsenal of tools to put in your toolbox.
Exactly. Oh, this has been beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm
I
excited.
know, I am too. It's just so good. And I think it's going to help so many people. I really do. And thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sharing happiness triggers. I just love that. It's a game changer.
I really think it is. I think it's a concept that if more people embraced, lives will be changed.
Definitely. So embrace it, everyone. Happiness triggers, embrace them. Thank you so much.
And look, you can. It's an ebook. You can download it for $5 from my website. It's worth that small investment in yourself.
That's it. Investment. People say, "Oh, I don't want to spend money." No, you're investing in yourself. That's how I look at it. You are investing in yourself, and that's you should be investing in yourself. Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed myself. I enjoyed talking with you, Lisa, and I look forward to seeing everything. And I hope that somebody really, even if only one person is helped, it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much.